She just wanted to apply eyeliner, but the driver's sudden stop caused it to poke into her eye. Due to the sensitive location of the injury, firefighters couldn't handle it themselves, opting to inject morphine to ease her pain temporarily until removal at the hospital. Their immediate concern was finding something to protect the eye, preventing further harm if it shifted. Suddenly, they eyed the driver's coffee.
Hey, that's mine!
Bill the CFD.
Carefully, they covered her eye with a paper cup, securing it with gauze.
Here we go.
They helped her out of the car slowly. She probably won't be applying eyeliner in a car ever again. There's a question lingering: does the taxi driver bear any responsibility in this scenario? The man was playing a cosplay game of Louis XVI at home with a guillotine, but he nearly ended up losing his entire head. Luckily, the blade got stuck and didn't come down completely. After the paramedics examined him, they found a tear on one side of his neck, but thankfully it hadn't reached his carotid artery. The paramedics calmed the man down and advised him not to move recklessly. Several of them tried to lift the blade together to relieve the pressure on the man's neck, but after attempting, they realized the blade stuck couldn't be moved at all. This distressed the man's wife, who was standing nearby. With no other choice, the team members had to resort to cutting. However, the man angrily shouted at the rescue team to stop. He insisted that the expensive guillotine prop was meant for his opera performances. Ignoring his protests, the rescue team proceeded to cut the fixation of the blade, then used the spreader to widen the gap, finally managing to pull the stuck blade up. The paramedics quickly bandaged the man's wound, then lifted him onto a stretcher and rushed him to the hospital. In the freezing weather of -30 to 40 degrees, a woman stood barefoot on the windowsill, trembling with cold. But the woman gathered on the ground cheered and clapped, wishing for her to fall and perish. The firefighters were puzzled, observing the man's pajamas. They seemed to understand something.
Together. When we heard Teresa come home, Faye panicked. She thought she could hang on the windowsill. I told her there was not enough room. She just bolted out.
Yet when the firefighters reached her, they were astonished to find her hand firmly stuck to the pipe.
My hands are stuck!
A teammate suggested using a heating spray gun to warm the pipe. To avoid harming the woman, the firefighters decided to use a power saw to cut the pipe. However, the power saw ran out of battery. Just then, the firefighters noticed the coffee of a bystander, and without hesitation they commandeered it. The firefighters promptly poured the scalding hot coffee onto the iron pipe, causing the woman to scream in agony.
Yeah, you got it.
Fortunately, the coffee's effect was effective, and the woman was soon rescued from her predicament. A hand was stuck in the gap of the freezer door. Even the firefighters found it perplexing. It turned out the man was the janitor hired for the freezer, but to the shock of his colleagues, they found him like this after they started their shifts. What was even more despairing was that he had been trapped for 4 to 5 hours. No matter how much the captain called out, there was no response from inside. In such a situation, if he was still alive, it would indeed be a miracle. After inspection, the captain considered cutting off the hinges of the door to open it, but this would inevitably crush the man's fingers. But what were fingers compared to a life? Immediately, everyone geared up and prepared to act. Just then, a team member had a new idea.
What if we put 2 haligans above and below his fingers to preserve the gap, and then we pop the door on the hinge side, comes this way? Yeah, good idea.
Without hesitation, they swiftly got into position. With the captain's command, the door slammed shut in an instant. The unsupported man collapsed. Luckily, he was still breathing, and the rescuers immediately lifted him onto a stretcher and rushed him to the hospital. The boy was in agony, his arm firmly stuck in the snowblower, with severed fingers scattered on the ground. Firefighters quickly shut off the running machine and reassured the boy to stay calm and avoid moving. His hand was trapped in the auger, and as firefighters picked up the fingers from the ground, the boy realized in shock that his fingers were missing.
Oh my god.
The firefighters hurried to comfort him, explaining that the cuts were very clean and there was a high chance that doctors could reattach them. The boy explained that he was waxing the chute of the snowblower to help the snow blow out more easily. He wanted to do as much work as possible because he was saving money to buy a PS5. Using tools brought by the firefighters, they began cutting. They quickly severed one end of the shaft. However, they hesitated to proceed with the other side, fearing it was too close to his hand. Seeing them suddenly stop working, the boy feared that he was beyond help, but the captain reassured him that everything would be okay. Eventually, they safely severed the shaft, and the boy slowly pulled out his hand. The firefighters comforted him, assuring him that he would be back to playing video games soon. Boxes of gold bars were being thrown down, and if someone managed to pick up 1 or 2, they wouldn't have to worry about food and drink for the rest of their lives. Just moments ago, a cash transport vehicle vehicle overturned in a car accident. Firefighters climbed up the ladder, intending to pull the driver out first. At that moment, two men with ill intentions crowded forward to see what was happening. The captain stepped forward to stop them. Suddenly, the iron chain securing the vehicle broke, flinging the firefighter on top out, luckily grabbing onto the edge of the vehicle in time. Other team members quickly secured the iron chain. The captain climbed the ladder and pulled his teammate up. Then the two of them leveraged the door open and carried the injured driver out. Next, they cut open the rear door of the cash transport vehicle. As soon as the door panel was lifted, the two men quickly approached. Seeing box after box of gold bars being thrown down, the two men, who had been unable to contain themselves, exchanged glances and rushed forward. The captain quickly intercepted them. Shortly after, detectives arrived and took control of the two men.
Stay down! Let's go. Come on. Up to your knees. Come on. Up. Let's go. Come on.
Slowly sliding down to the man's position, the firefighter wrapped their thighs tightly around him, ensuring safety before instructing their teammate to cut the cable. But the next moment, gravity caused them to rapidly descend, luckily landing on a support point, stopping their descent. The temporary safety didn't allow them to relax. The paramedic quickly helped the unconscious man with an oxygen mask. Then they slid again, and the paramedic rushed to grab them, thankfully stopping at the edge of the rooftop, saving their lives. They heard the siren and saw the aerial ladder truck approaching, feeling the distance shrink yet feeling unreachable. Staying grounded is the best feeling. It was indeed a thrilling rescue. The man narrowly avoided being cut in half, shocking the firefighters at the scene. They rushed forward to assess his condition, hearing his difficult cries for help.
Help me!
The restaurant owner explained that the man, trying to avoid pedestrians, crashed into the side of the road, catapulting like a cannonball and crashing headfirst into the restaurant. His fate was uncertain. Paramedics found the man breathing rapidly, his pulse raising. Without timely treatment, he would soon lose too much blood. However, the glass was lodged in the man's lung, and pulling it out directly would likely lead to immediate death. Their only option was to cut the glass. The man was laid flat, and firefighters used tools to carefully cut the glass, removing the shards below. With everyone's concerted efforts, they managed to flip the man over. With such a large piece of glass embedded in his abdomen, the sight was painful to behold. His survival was nothing short of a miracle. Hoping that he would live to see the sun rise tomorrow. The firefighters had just arrived at the scene of the accident when the driver rushed over, urging them to flee immediately. He explained that his vehicle was transporting liquid hydrogen and warned that if it exploded, the entire neighborhood would be leveled. The driver quickly turned and fled. Opening the car door, the firefighters discovered that the valve was damaged and hydrogen gas was continuously leaking out. Evacuating residents was clearly not an option given the urgency of the situation. The only solution was to move the liquid hydrogen, but the front of the car was damaged. At that moment, the captain noticed a nearby tow truck. He smashed the car window, in full view of the residents, successfully hot-wired the vehicle using a screwdriver. They managed to move the gas tank onto the tow truck. A potentially explosive vehicle sped away at 180 kilometers per hour. At the critical moment, the firefighters collectively jumped out of the vehicle. Fortunately, the area nearby was a safe zone and no property damage occurred, except for the innocent tow truck driver.